Okay. Good afternoon. I'm interviewing Jeanne Giddings Robeson, and I myself am Anne Sinkowitz. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2026, and we are recording in Monmouth, Illinois, 61462. Your turn.
And I am Jeanne Giddings Robeson, and I'm delighted to be interviewed by Anne, and I'll try and answer her questions the best I can.
Well, you may have some questions you want answered that I don't know how to ask. So
Okay.
we've got a little list. And I have a couple that aren't on the list that I'm planning on dropping in later. But the first one, which they've given to us, is when were you born?
I was born September 17th, 1938, in Hinsdale, Illinois, to a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Seastrom and a lady by the name of Elise Gossman. We were later adopted in April of 1939 by Clarence and Althea Giddings of Cameron, Illinois. We moved from the Chicago area. We were moved from the Chicago area to a farm near Cameron, Illinois.
And your sister was your twin.
We were twins, Jacqueline K. Giddings Moore, who has passed away.
And how many brothers and sisters? Were there any children in the Giddings family?
No, we were the only adopted children to Clarence and Althea.
And what's your earliest memory?
Oh, I think going to the little country school. It was about a mile away on the far corner of the farm. And we would sometimes walk to school. Sometimes our parents would take us. A one-room school with all 8 grades. So it was a learning experience for our first 4 years. And then we went to Cameron because Galesburg consolidated and took in a number of the small little schools. So our school was, the name of the school was Shortsville. In Cameron, we went to 5th and 6th grade. Then we went to Churchill Junior High in Galesburg and then Galesburg High and graduated in 1960. No, that's not right. 1956. 1956.
Let's see. And they want to know your parents' names, and you did already begin that outline, but your father's name and your mother's.
My father's name was Clarence Kirk Giddings. He had come from Nebraska to play football at Lombard College in the mid 1920s and met my mother, Althea McConnell. And he was a newspaper man for 10 years until 1935, when the owner of the farm, my great-grandmother, passed away. And they bought the farm and then farmed for the next 30 years.
Well, and the questions to be, how did your father earn a living? But I think you told us.
Well, it's actually more interesting than that, because after he retired from farming, he was on WRAM as a newsman, and then he was on it's in Iowa. He was on television for a number of years as a newsman. and then back to Monmouth, and he worked for the Review Atlas for several years.
Wow. Wow, that was interesting. And when did you said where the family farm? Actually, it's been divided now, hasn't it?
It has been.
But
The farm was purchased in 1853 by Royal Wiswell, and he purchased a half section, which is 320 acres. In that time, there was a pasture that was difficult to manage, so that was sold. And then the remaining land was divided by my twin sister and I. And when she passed away, that farm was just sold a year ago. So there's 125 acres left of the original 320.
Mhm. And when did the first members of your family come to Warren County? Would that have been your great grandparents?
That would have been Royal Wiswell in 1853, and then on our father's side, who was Edward Pike McConnell. Actually, that was my grandfather. His family settled in Galesburg and were business people and involved in the Universalist Church.
So all around the same time, though, in the 1850s.
Yes, yes.
And where did they come from?
Vermont and New York, primarily, I think.
So they left the cold places with the stony soil.
The stony soil, of which is a story. One of the hired men that worked for Mother Wiswell, who ran the farm for a number of years, said that he loved working here because he didn't have to work with inferno rocks. And that's what he called the land in the east, that there were lots of inferno rocks that they had to deal with.
Yes, they used to say that it broke your back to farm in the east. Yeah. So, and I guess, yes, you did have other family close by. You had Galesburg family and Warren County family. Were there any other members of the close families nearby? So did people stay in contact with the ones out in Vermont?
No, not that we know of at all. No.
Let's see. Tell us a memory you have of your father when you were a child, and walking you to school. We've already mentioned. So,
well, I guess the thing that I remember was he looked like Clark Gable, and from time to time when they traveled to Arizona, he was actually. People thought perhaps he was, although. As a child, I didn't see it, but now I see it, that I could see why people would think that. So.
And what did your mother think about that?
Oh, I think she thought it was fun.
Okay.
I'm sure she thought it was great fun.
And where was your mother born?
Mother was born in Chicago to Lillian Wiswell and Edward McConnell. And he was an attorney with his father for Commonwealth Edison in Chicago. In 1903, a manhole cover blew off, hit him in the head, and he died.
Oh, dear.
The next year, my grandmother contracted consumption which I think is tuberculosis these days, and she passed away. So my mother was an orphan at the age of 4.
Oh, well,
So she was raised by Mother Wiswell, and that's why we go back to Mother Wiswell. That because she lost her husband, Martin Wiswell, in very early in their marriage when he was kicked in the head by a horse. So she raised 4 children, sent them all to Lombard College. They all graduated from Lombard College, and and then Althea, my mother, went to Lombard and graduated from Lombard, and that's where she met my father.
wow. Tell us a memory you have of your mother when you were a child. So,
Very active in the community. She was one of the first, well, she was the first woman to be a precinct committeeman for the Republican Party for Floyd Township. She helped start the Republican Women's Club and very active in homemakers, very active in Associated Country Women of the World. And after World War II, she traveled to Europe with the people from that organization and met some of the people that they had sent clothing to and so forth during the war. So very interesting and active and very involved in the community. Was a member of the Congregational Church in Galesburg.
So we've got some Universalist church and we've got some Congregational church. What other kinds of are those the main church people that you remember?
The Universalists, of course, we don't really remember because once my grandfather passed away, then there was not much connection with that side of the family. So I just really remember the Congregational church. And then when I married my husband, I became a Presbyterian, which is the same thing as a Congregationalist, except a little bit different way they run their churches.
Well, okay.
You know,
there are Presbyterians and there are Presbyterians.
That's
yes.
very true.
Yeah, it says, how did you meet your husband? And I took for granted until I found out that he was from the class of 1954 at Monmouth College, and you from the class of 1960 at Monmouth College. So there must have been some other way you met him.
Well, but the college was involved. My senior year, one of the young ladies was running for secretary of the class. So our sorority, Pi Beta Phi, went out and campaigned for her. He was a Theta Chi at Monmouth, and he was there just for the evening and saw me and asked about me and found out that in the summers and on the weekends, I worked for Penny's. So he came over to Penny's and asked me for a date, but I didn't know who he was. So I asked my dad to find out. He was working at the Review Atlas at that time. He asked Dorothy Arthur. Now, there's a name from the past. And Dorothy said, oh, yes, I know the Robeson family. They go to church with me at First Presbyterian, and he's a good young man, and she should be able to date him. So we had our first date.
Oh, wonderful. What did you do?
I think we went to a fair. I think the Mercer County Fair was maybe on, and we went to a fair. So that was a very, very long time ago, my dear.
That's the most fun things do seem to be that way. Let's see. And So where did you meet your husbands? Yes, that's number 16. And we already know how your family earned a living, both in the newspaper world and the business world and the farming. And we know where your farm was. And your husband's family also lived and farmed
in Warren County. They were in Hale Township and we were in Floyd Township. And it was surprising that our parents did not know each other. Although by the time Don and I were married, his father had been gone for several years. Can I tell a quick story about Jackie and I?
You can tell any stories you want.
Well, going back to what we did as youngsters, where we were 4-H members. And about the time that we were 14 or 15, we gave a demonstration on how to cut up a chicken to prepare it for freezing. And we competed on the county level and won. So we got to go to Springfield to give this presentation. It was hot, as it often is in the summer. Carrying chickens before there was much refrigeration of any kind. But our chickens were just a tad ripe as we were working with them. But we were the only ones that day that got a blue ribbon. Our parents were sitting in the audience. So we had to answer whatever questions the judges asked us. We were on our own. Some of the other contestants, their parents were giving them the answers. So my favorite question was, well, first of all, I'd made the statement that chickens fed with Illinois corn had a beautiful color and better taste. And the judge was from Iowa, and he said, "What about Iowa corn?" And I said, "Oh no, just Illinois corn." And of course, that brought a lot of laughter.
Mm-hmm. And since you were in Springfield, you were relatively safe.
Relatively.
It's cute. Was your sister identical?
No. No. We've, since the family has been together quite a bit lately, we've discussed nature and nurture. Our father was very, very Swedish, 100% Swedish. She was very blonde and blue-eyed, and our mother was German French. And I do not have the Nordic look that she did. And our interests were as different as night and day. She was a homemaker, very interested in volunteering and helping with schools and so forth. She graduated from Iowa State with a home ec major. And I was more business, which she was not interested in at all. So, and very much interested in history, which she was not interested in. So, no, we were not identical twins in any sense of the word.
You kind of filled in for each other.
Yes, and we were very close. It did not affect our relationship.
Perhaps since there wasn't any competition involved, it made it better. So let's see. Tell us a story about something that happened at work.
Well, I never worked. Well, I worked at Penny's when I was in high school and in college. My summer job was to work at Penny's, which was a wonderful job for me. Just it worked well, but I never worked off the farm.
But working on the farm was something that was
large gardens, yes, and transporting children everywhere. No chickens.
Chickens that you processed for the 4-H.
We had chickens when we were little, and growing up, but I decided once we were married, no more chickens.
They have their good points and their bad points, yes. What was it like to be a farmer or the wife of a farmer when you were a child, and how was it different from today?
The equipment.
Well, yes.
I remember my father was one of the first people to have rubber tires on his tractor, which was at that time was really quite something. And then I can remember when Don had a one row corn picker on an open tractor. And now to see the first combine he got, which would have been a 6 row combine, and he would be in the cab and protected from the weather. So what a change, just amazing over the years.
Yes. Let's see, machine farming operation. How has your farming operation declined or grown since previous generations? What crops were raised on the farm? What livestock were raised on the farm? Is enormous. Of course, you have people working for you on your property.
Now, yes, I have a young man who does my farming for me. Daddy always had cattle. He had Black Angus, and not, it wasn't a huge herd, but he had enough that he would ship to Chicago. I can tell you that I can remember once that a train pulled into Cameron and a whole carload of Black Angus cattle jumped off, and they drove them 2.5 miles to the farm. But in that day and age, everybody had fences. Now perhaps that's the biggest change that I really am aware of. Nobody has fences anymore. Yeah. So you couldn't do that today. It would be, you'd have cattle everywhere. But they had horses, and they took the cattle right down the road and put them in the feedlot.
Did your family run a separate business besides farming, and what kind of business? How did it start?
No, farming was pretty much a full-time job.
I should imagine, actually, especially they didn't have any pigs on the farm.
Yes, Daddy had some hogs, and Don had hogs for about the first 5 years, and then he went strictly to feeder cattle, and he finished out heifers. He would buy them at 400 to 500 pounds and finish them out at about 1,100 pounds, and then ship them to market.
Did you feed food scraps? This is an extra question. Did you feed food scraps from the family to the hogs you had, or was that when you were so early?
I wasn't aware.
Did you or other members of your family participate in any other jobs or professions, teaching, transportation? But you've already said that most of your work was summer work at Penny's. And did your family attend local churches? And yes.
Yes.
Do we have to say time's up? Let's take a break. Well, we're not just getting started, but
we have time to do the church part.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I went to the Congregational Church in Galesburg, and Don and I were married in the Congregational Church. And then we came back and went to the First Presbyterian Church in Monmouth. And within the next 5 years, the five Presbyterian churches became one church plus one group of people who did not want to be involved in the merger. And Don was, I think, the second clerk of the session for that union. So we were very involved in that. Okay, we'll stop.
I wanted to ask you a little about the college experience and the Wiswell Robeson lecture.